Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Welcome to Cellar Door Skeptics. And we're live right now, and we may have a little bit of audio difficulty because we are live on Facebook and we're live on Spreaker. And Hannah's going to be sharing the link, and now we're going to hear each other backwards. So we'll try and fix some audio. We may not be able to do the live Facebook thing right now, just because I don't know if I can stand hearing myself talk while we do this. And we didn't think about this before we did this, but hey, we're trying to do the whole thing on Facebook and on Spreaker at the same time. So, you know, so very sorry if for whatever reason you try. Thank you so much for joining us. And see, we just had an audio cutout.
Are we maxing out your Mac?
Yeah, a little bit we are, yeah. So we'll do next time is we'll hook up the live streaming from our computer first, and then we'll run that separately. So,
hey, cool. Well, let's give it a shot and see if everything starts on fire or not.
Yeah. So tonight we have an amazing episode set up for everybody, and we did something a little bit different than what we were planning on doing before. And, you know, we just wanted to ensure that we didn't do the exact same episode we did 2 weeks ago. And so tonight we're going to be talking a lot of science. Not too much, but for the most part, quite a bit. Because we're going to talk a little bit about aliens here in a second, and if they can, you know, if there is something called a Fermi's paradox, and if it's anything that we'll be able to deal with or work on, and if aliens even exist. We're also going to be talking quite a bit about rental ownership and the economy and how it's completely affected everything and changed exactly how everything works right now, right? And we're going to end the show talking about the debate recap, because we have to do that. We can't help ourselves. We have to talk about the debate because Trump was crazy, Hillary was crazy, and I have some stuff. I haven't even talked to Hannah about some of this. He's been so damn sick. And he's still sick right now, so anybody watching this live, for whatever reason, if you are actually watching this live, you will see that Hannah is definitely a sick person.
He hit me in the corner behind the wall of steel.
I did, and that was kind of cool, right? You know, you look kind of cool in there. Hey, I figured out how to get rid of the back feed. Awesome. Anyway, so... You do look amazing tonight. So anybody watching on Facebook, please tweet at us, right? Tweet at us and say it's Cellar Door Skep and tell us whether you watched on Facebook or not. Because we would like to know if that's something that people will be interested in seeing. Because you could see us do our gibberish behind scenes. Now, the one thing for those watching live on Facebook, the one thing that you're going to miss out tonight, unfortunately, is you're not going to be able to hear the commercials, and it's just going to be dead silence for about 2.5 minutes. So I'm very sorry, but that's just the way it's got to be for a second. So, you know, again, this is an amazing opportunity. We enjoy coming here every single week.
It's just fun to try new stuff out. Like, we've got a bunch of really cool tech. We're learning. We're trying to make our podcast better. Anybody that's interested in this stuff, anybody that knows some cool tricks, talk to us. Let us know. If you like it, you don't like it, talk to us. Just let us know. I mean, we can change what we're doing to try to make it a little bit easier or a little bit more interesting. And obviously, I mean, we're not going to change too much because we got to be boring and scientific from time to time, just like we got to be political and raging angry from time to time.
Yes. And so before we go any farther, if you would like to support us on Patreon for just $1 an episode, that's $4 a month. That's less than 2 energy drinks or 1 cup of coffee. please go support us because it'll help us purchase equipment that will allow us to do this and mix all of this together. And we got to have a shout out. We have one new Patreon this week. So thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Patreon. And I don't know if I messaged you and you could tell me if I can mention your name on the air or not, because I don't want to publicize your name in case you want it to be private. But thank you so much to our new Patreon that is helping us keep the lights on. To steal from Ask an Atheist. But without further ado, I don't want to go any farther into a rant. I want to talk a little bit about an article that my wife brought to my attention. And normally I ignore IFLsciences.com. I usually ignore that site because a lot of times they have stuff on there and you're like, is this really science? Is it not? But they had an interesting article about Brian Cox where he talks and explains why we haven't seen aliens and it isn't pretty. And so she brought this to my attention because Hannah and I have been recently talking quite a bit about, extraterrestrial life. And, maybe if there's alternate universes that have the same issues we have, with Trump and Clinton, right?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe they figured this stuff out and they're living a nice, peaceful life like the hippies over in Auroraville.
Yeah, that would be nice. And that's a throwback to last episode 51, where we talked about socialism. Anyway, what the article talks about, and it's very short, but they have a lot of links in here. They have a link to the Sunday Times article. They have a link to their article on the Fermi paradox. And we just thought, hey, why don't we just talk for a few minutes about this, right? And so the Fermi paradox was created by Enrico Fermi in the 1950s. And he coined this because basically it was a way of allowing them to create a different type of theory as to what will answer the questions of whether there's aliens or extraterrestrial life. And so given that our star and Earth are relatively young planetary systems compared to the rest of the universe, logically you would think that the way evolution works, it would happen on other planets, therefore interstellar travel might be fairly easy to achieve. It might be something that other civilizations have done. So before I go any farther, though, Hannah, do you know anything about the Fermi's paradox? Is that anything you've ever studied or anything like that?
I've mentioned it in passing a couple times throughout some of our science episode stuff that we've done when it talks about time travel, long distance stuff. So it's really cool. I really like the idea. It's a great thing to basically to tell people who are skeptical about life in the universe, or to tell someone who says that there's aliens coming down and they're picking up people in Tennessee, and when it gets really weird. So there's a good way to debunk both of those arguments, saying that life is pretty possible as far as the universe is concerned because it's so big and almost infinite. And then the other end saying that they're coming down here joyriding in an anal probing the creepies out in the Smoky Mountains. This is a cool thing, and it's relatively smart. So I usually use it just to be incredibly rare and abundant at the same time.
Yeah. And that was the one thing, when we look at this, right? When we look at what the Fermi's paradox could be, how does it play? Is it even irrelevant, right? And so basically what they talk about is that with all these plentiful Earths and all these billions and billions of light years between them, could another civilization exist, right? Is there a way, or is space just too big that we'll never ever meet other intelligent life? And so the first thing they talk about is the SETI Institute. Is that how you say that, Hannah? SETI?
Yeah, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence.
Okay. So I just want to make sure I say it, And what they talk about is that, to date, their search has relied on, from that institution, right? A few telescope arrays that have gone around the world, that have gone out into space. And what they talk about, right, is that there's something called the Great Filter. And they believe that 10 years ago, they had something called the Breakthrough Listen Project. And on one solution to the Fermi's paradox, it suggests that there's a great filter in the universe at which intelligent life stops, perhaps through self-destruction or other means. And it could be we are the first species to be able to pass through that filter, or maybe we haven't reached the filter yet. And that's the interesting part about this whole, this whole discussion, right? Is that without thinking in this way, we would just go on thinking, hey, evolution states this. There's no other rules to check it. in logic here, and if we want to look at this paradox and the reasoning behind it, we can honestly say that it makes a little bit of sense. Because if evolution went 100% unchecked, it would be like a law. But we know that there's certain aspects that can break and violate maybe not violate, but counteract some of these laws. And this would be this. Honestly say this would be one. Good job, Hannah. This would be one of those, the great filter. And what it talks about is that either our civilization is too primitive to be able to reach out to other life systems, or that we may not be alone, but when we go to attempt that, something else is going to create some sort of a setback, right, for us. And we can look at what we're going to talk about at the end of the night, right? We can look at the great debate. I don't know how great it really is.
Yeah, it was basically the same thing we got last time.
Yeah.
I don't know. We can talk more about that when we get to it, but I was unimpressed, and it's what I expected to be, just left wanting. But when it comes to the Fermi paradox, you got me saying it weird too. The Fermi paradox, it's awesome specifically because what it does is, through its simplicity, allow people to get an idea of what the scope of the universe is. So one of the ways that I usually like to start, just people is like, well, I don't understand what it is. What it is basically is that the universe is so big that even if life were relatively quantitative, like we're talking a pretty big number of planets that support life, that the idea that even if they become intelligent, even to where we are now, they could not get just to the next galaxy over, let alone across hundreds of billions of galaxies. So what we've got here is an idea. Let's say life can form on 1 in a billion planets. And there are roughly 100 to 400 billion stars just in the Milky Way galaxy alone. So that's 100 to 400 times life can form in our galaxy alone. Now, if we think about how many galaxies there are in the universe, there's roughly 100 to 200 billion galaxies in the universe. And so by those numbers, just really out there extrapolations, we're looking at anywhere from 10,000 to 80,000 planets like Earth that have life. Now, 80,000, even on the optimistic end of that, is a really nice big number. But if you spread 80,000 planets evenly over 92 billion light years, they're so far away and so spread out that, I mean, even if they're some of our closer or clustered, it's still going to be incredibly far. And right now, we couldn't even send radio waves very well that far, let alone send us craft. We just got a craft out of our solar system not too long ago. I mean, we're looking at a long technological distance from our current technological advancements just to get out of our solar system with people. We can't even get to Mars. I mean, that's the Fermi paradox. It's like, how far advanced do a creature, a civilization have to get before they could actually leave their solar system, leave their galaxy? And then you actually have to be able to look and find life too. And so there's a really big gap there. And some people say that life can't get there because by the time it gets smart enough to actually go and traverse the universe, it's probably already blown itself up.
Yeah. And that's the big thing here, right? Is that, that's what, Brian Cox is talking about. He's talking about how there's almost no logic in understanding that. And they use something, and I've never heard of this equation before. They use something called the Drake equation.
Yes, you've heard of it because we went over it.
Did we?
Yeah, it was one of those ones where you spaced out.
Yeah, wasn't? I could have been.
Yeah, it was a Drake equation. We talked a little bit about all the things that multiply together. It's an idea. Each one gets more specific as to how much more difficult it is for life to get intelligent. Like there's what I did with the breakdown a moment ago about life forming on planets. Well, there's that, and then how many get above a single cell structure, and then how many get above a warm-blooded mammalian or organic, and they're able to use tools and stuff. Like there's different levels of the Drake equation. And then the last one's obviously intelligence and space travel. Like these are multipliers. Each one multiplies again and again and again, making it less and less probable.
Yeah. And basically, they talk about how it suggests the Earth could be a rare species, right? Amongst the billions and billions of other planets. And I guess if we talk about it, my father-in-law, rest his soul, talked about this to a point, but just in a different manner, right? He basically said, "Why would extraterrestrial life want to come see us?" What would be the logic if they were that far advanced? You would think on the humanistic scale, unless they're going to come help us, they have no reason to come spy on us, to come probe us, to come drop off different, things to have that conversation. And that's the funny thing with this is we go, okay, fair enough, right? That's a fair viewpoint. And how do we get past that, though? How do we get to the point where we can go, okay, yes, is there a way around Drake's equation? Is there a way to quantify this differently? And maybe, just maybe, we'll never be able to break through, the great filter.
Well, maybe also that these incredibly intelligent life forms have realized that the prime directive ideals in something like Star Trek, where you cannot go in and affect and change the cultures, it's like a butterfly effect. As soon as you in any way come into contact with any other alien species, you permanently change it. It's like measuring things in the quantum world. As soon as you look at it and you force it to be something, you change it. You change its state. And so maybe they realize that life itself, in its own evolutionary cycle on its specific planet alone, is very limited in what it can do, succeed and fail, and any intervention may destroy it.
And that's fair. That is something that I can conceive of, Hannah. And if you look at the election, right, and what the election's doing to our nation, we can all admit that we feel fairly confident that
it's the end of days.
It's the end of days, right? I mean, if you talk with Trump supporters or Hillary supporters, it's such dissension that's what it feels like. But we'll be right back with more Cellar Door Skeptics on Facebook Live and on Spreaker Live, talking about rental economy. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Miss B. Haven.
I'm Demanda Wright.
And we're
promoting secular feminism. And you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
What's something I could do with a very sexy lady friend of mine that people would find provocative, interesting, and entertaining enough to tune in week after week? Oh, I know! A podcast! If you'd like to hear me and Kate be provocative and thought-provoking week after week, join us on the Unbuckling the Bible Belt podcast. We'd love for you to be part of our audiological three-way.
Looking for something new and exciting, or maybe just a change from the old Atheist Show format? Cellar Door Skeptics Podcast provides listeners with hours of enjoyment each week on Spreaker and iTunes. Check us out as we talk politics, religion, science, reviews of books and music, along with the occasional interview just for a twist. Join Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern as they bring fresh content to you. Walk with us through the cellar door as we help you prepare for the revolution. You can find us on Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, and even on Facebook.
Hey, this is Keith.
And this is Jen, and we're from Not Another Atheist Podcast.
You're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Join the revolution.
Now, back to the show.
Oh, welcome back. Welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Again, we are streaming live on Facebook right now, and I'm excited because we've never done this. And
Are we going to do like a wild live new thing every week? Because it seems like we got a
dude,
new...
you don't have your pants on already. I mean, what the fuck more do you want? I mean,
well,
you would have
that's
to...
why I'm in the shadows. I live in the darkness. I was molded by it.
I mean, we could do it. I'll tell you what, if we get $100 a month in Patreon, I'll do a nude show. There you go. There you go, everybody. You want to see Cellar Door Skeptics nude? I guess
Yeah, why not?
Get
You know
enough
what? And
Patreons
they can
do that.
every person that puts a new dollar in a Patreon, we put on one piece of clothing. It's like the opposite of like a strip poker or something. It's like here's $1, put something back on.
Oh, but what if they want to see us nude, Hannah? Then that violates the whole purpose, right?
Well, I'm pretty sure Mark Zuckerberg himself would end that broadcast.
I wonder how people, if you could flag that. Please don't flag our video. Please don't flag our video while it's live. But that would be interesting to do a test. We should do a test next week and test a live video and just have somebody go flag the fuck out of, or the crap out of it so that we can, test it and see what it does.
Well,
So if
let's do it on like a weird one that we just make up or something so we don't get shadow banned or something.
All right, fair enough. And if anybody is watching on Facebook and you can't hear us, please let us know. I don't know if the audio's coming through because I have no way to test it.
Well, you heard it coming back towards your head when you started. You had to yank off your headphones because it was like two Tanners in the room at the same time.
Yeah, so hopefully you're able to hear it. Otherwise, I guess I'll be deleting the video, or maybe I'll download the video and merge it together. I don't know. I don't care. So if you're listening to this and you cannot hear us on Facebook, please send us a message or tweet at us. I'll watch the tweets.
And tell us how horrible it is to simply watch us sit here and not hear anything.
Hey, that's like atheist analysis. Come on, that wasn't that bad of a show.
Well, I don't remember it ever being quiet during that show. It's pretty noisy.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people moved around a lot.
Though the worst when people had, like they used their phones or their tablets for their webcam. So
I think a co-host of yours used to do that, didn't he?
If you didn't have a Dramamine in your system, you'd just be throwing up all over your screen or whatever. I remember Zoltan did that to us. It was like, oh man, that was a crazy interview, I guess that's what people call it.
Anyway, so let's go back to the show instead of Hannah's BS rant. So Hannah, introduce us to this next segment because I think this is an interesting topic. And, I'll be honest, it's one of those things where I have struggled in my personal life. And I kind of think that this fits me personally, and I think others may find this interesting. So introduce us to what you want to talk about for the rental economy.
Well, the whole thing, it's kind of like an evolution of the gentrification stuff that we did a couple of months ago. The idea that we're seeing this massive movement in really important parts of society, cities and urban areas, and the price is going up. It's going up everywhere. People that live there can't afford to live there anymore. They're getting pushed out by rental prices going up. So what is this? Well, we've seen the first year since the 60s and the first year since 2007 where median income went up. People are doing better. The middle class and the lower class have seen the biggest rise in a very long time. So what does that mean? It means people should probably be buying more houses, right? People should be able to save more money and afford more luxuries in life. But what we're seeing is a basic median income increase of a certain amount. But the people that are still on the lower end of the spectrum, they've only got, let's say, $15,000, $20,000 income. And their rents are taking up 50, 60, sometimes 70% of their income. So what do you do? How do you save money when every penny you have goes to pay the rent that you get that just keeps going up? There's no ceiling to it for any reason at all. And then you have to stay alive with food and heat and water and gas and work. So what we're not seeing this. Okay, the middle class is finally doing a little bit better. People are starting to have a little bit more disposable income. We're seeing that get eaten up by real estate and rentals. So I wanted to kind of build into this and take it away from gentrification now and just what's going on with people that are renting and why are they continuing to be stuck where they are in these cycles?
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because I was in the same boat. When I lost my house like 8 years ago, that was one of the big things, right? It was one of the things where I was not able to get back on my feet for a while. I had a lot of debt. I had to start paying it off. So I started paying my debt off, trying to rebuild my credit. And then, what happened is I was not eligible for a loan based on my income. And they were like, oh, well, you can't do this. Well, then all of a sudden these rates dropped, and rental prices dropped. And it was funny because on my side, right, the rent I was paying was relatively close to a house payment. It was not high. It was for a full house. Now, the house wasn't great. It wasn't some awesome, thing. It was a pretty decent house. But the big thing is as soon as we moved out and bought a house, guess what they did to the rental price?
Blew it up.
Oh my God, they almost doubled it. Not quite doubled it. They basically took it and added $700 to it.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? In that area for that house? So the rent on the house that we used to live in is more than the house I own right now. Literally almost double.
Yeah.
And that's insane to me. I mean, and it's a nicer neighborhood, yes, but it's still the suburbs, and it's still a small house. The house I live in now has twice the square footage, almost 3 times the acreage, and yet people aren't able to get loans. So what happens to the population? If you can't get loans, right, what are you going to do? You have to rent. You don't get a choice. And so it almost kind of feels like, it's like the reverse situation for when everybody was able to get a house no matter what.
I would say it feels like somebody's stacking in the deck. That's what it feels like to me. So when we hear about really, really rich people like Donald Trump saying, when the market goes down, that's good for me. I can survive a major downturn in the market because I go and I buy everything. But what Donald Trump was saying when he basically said that was when he has enough money to handle the market going to shit. He can just, it sucks. He loses a massive amount of money, but he already has a massive amount of money. So what he has left is way more than we all have. So he can invest when everything is cheap. He buys houses, he buys real estate, he buys investments. And then when the market eventually goes back up, and all of us who've lost all our shit, we're still paying all of our taxes. We help rebuild the system. We get a politician elected like President Obama, who's turned things around pretty significantly when it comes to the economy. Then Donald Trump makes all that money back and more. He owns more of the real estate market, or other people who are really rich in different businesses. They own more of the gold market. They own more of the steel market. They own more of the oil market. Or the banking market. Their banks are bigger, stronger, more powerful. Like what happens is it's a coalescing of power. So we have this downturn. Everybody in the middle and the lower end gets crushed. And then the people who survive, they add and gather more power, more money. And then when the market starts doing better, they have the ability to do things like rent. They own the real estate. They just, we'll all raise rent and we'll all continue making more money. Like that's what happens when you basically take one of the things that people love about capitalism in the conservative community, and you basically get rid of what's good about capitalism. The competition. There is none. If 5, 10, 20 people own all of the rental real estate in a city, guess what's happening to your rent? It's going up. That's just a natural rule. And so that's what's happening in a lot of these places. One company will own all of the major rental properties in a city, and they just jack it up because they can, because nobody can stop them.
Yeah. And so, in the one article you posted, it talks about this. It talks about San Francisco, San Jose, New York have seen between 300 and 600% increases in the last 30 years. That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. I can't even imagine that.
And the thing is, when you ask them to justify it, like, okay, how does this make any sense? And they just give you a bunch of filibuster money. Like, there's no real answer. There's no reason why. It's one of the things that frustrates people who don't like economics. There's no reason for a lot of this stuff. The market pushes and pulls, and people just take advantage when they can.
Yeah, and they do. And they talk about, your median income, right? And I don't know if we've covered this. Forgive me when I had to step aside for a second. But, median income has gone up 5.2%. And I think we talked about a little bit last week when we talked about wages and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we talked about it's increasing, but we're not seeing anything else increase. We're getting screwed in some aspects, right? But with the tiers going up and the more money going into it, people still aren't able to put money away for their houses. They're still not able to get out of the rental market. And sometimes, and maybe this is going to sound conspiratory, right? But sometimes I almost think that bigger businesses are looking into the future and gambling and predicting different things, right? So they're like, okay, well, if we do these things, we can keep people in rentals. Yeah. So they're going to keep people here so that they can do this on purpose, right? So they can make the more money, And
it's marketing, man. I mean, that's economics.
That's capitalism, though, right? That's the essence of capitalism to a point. They're helping to sway the markets in certain ways to create large capital for their investors.
And it's cheating, but it's also not cheating. The idea that capitalism is like completely unregulated, and so that competition will prevent large masses of everything at the top end taking everything. Well, it doesn't seem to be that way. It doesn't ever seem to actually happen. It does seem to slowly accrue everything to one point. And then in the past, we used to just cut that person's head off and burn their capital down and distribute it back down, a la the French Revolution, the British Revolution, or whatever. But we can't do that anymore because now they have armies with tanks and bombs and stuff. So the people can't have a revolution like that. We have to go through the political channels, unless, of course, you want to try a revolution. I don't think that's the best idea, but I mean, what else do we do to try to get this stuff to go back down? I mean, we've seen, like you said, a 5.2 raise in the median income. I mean, that the economics and the economists are just absolutely ecstatic. People were saying that they can't remember the last time they were this happy about any kind of announcements about the economy. But they're asking is like, well, what's happening with the people who who actually, it says in this article, it's the City Lab article, or no, U.S. News. It says that they basically, these are the best incomes that the lower groups have had in forever. Why aren't we seeing a real big change? Just because their money is still tied up in their rentals, because rentals have gone up. Even though they've made a little more money, they still have no more disposable income. And if you don't have any disposable income, you can't save any money either.
Yeah. And on the opposite side, the housing market, those that can afford it are snatching them up, because to a point, it's not just a seller's market, it's also a buyer's market.
Yeah, right now, the real estate economy is really great for sellers because you can turn your house around immediately almost. But it's also really great for buyers because there's tons of houses and they're still relatively cheap, but they're increasing. Pretty soon, they'll be, the prices will be too high when the interest rate goes up because the Fed's going to raise the rate, and that'll slow down some of this demand. But right now, it's great for everyone in real estate.
Yeah. And that's the big thing, right? So, what's driving that? Why are there so few homes available per se? There's tons of homes, but they're not the homes that are affordable. And when affordable homes come on the market, they're harder to get. And for example, we have friends at the CFI, Jennifer B, and her and her husband just bought a house in Grand Rapids, right? And they got a really good deal on the house. But the house next to them went within a day. They bought their house pretty much within a day or two of it going on the market. It's insane because their house was reasonably priced. Whoever was selling it was not like, hey, I want to make buku bucks. I'm going to make whatever I feel is necessary. Down the street from me, there's a historic house, and it's an actual historic house. And this house is ugly, but it's inside is beautiful. Huge house. Looks like a very big Southern style type house, right? And it has gaudy lions statues on the outside. That's kind of gaudy. I don't like that. But anyway, the house, they listed it for $450,000 when it went on the market, right? That's
and that
insane.
Was high?
That's, in my opinion, that's huge for this neighborhood.
Okay. For
this neighborhood, houses range anywhere between 120, let's just say, and 250 on my street. And agreeably, that house is larger than my house and the house combined next to me, right? Arguably, that is true. But usually you don't see that large of a swith. If I try to sell my house for $400,000, somebody just laugh at me. I'm like, we're not going to pay you that. Your house ain't worth that.
The people next to my parents did the same thing at $450,000 in a neighborhood of $200,000 houses. So I've just been amazed at what's been happening for house sales in this area.
Yep. On the opposite side, and this is one thing I don't know if the article touches on or not, but construction new homes is going up too, right? So another personal story, but my boss at work, basically, he bought his house when the market crashed, and he's fixed it up, turned it around, and now he's selling it, and he's making a 40% profit on his house, right? Over what he paid.
He had enough money to make an investment when the market was down. Like this is the most important thing that happens here. But people still have enough disposable income, saved income, that they can do that, and then they can make investments, and they can ride that wave and make money, and their money makes them money in the future. And so people who don't make much, they never have that insurance cushion or whatever. In the City Lab article that we're gonna tag in the
Description?
Description, yeah.
You're not even drunk.
My cold medicine is melting my face. Anyways, it says that another thing to keep in mind, the Great Recession was awful. In 2015, some 3.5 million people were lifted out of poverty. That's huge, but still, its number of poverty right now is 43.1 million. It's higher than what it was before 2007. So the poverty rate fell 1.2% in 2015 to 13.5%. Again, this is a really great drop, but it's still 1% higher than it was in 2007. So we're talking about this is the biggest gain we've had, the first gains we've seen in major growth for the middle class and the lower class since 2007, and not as big since, and percentage-wise, since the 60s, but we're still not even where we were in 2007. And 2007 was a pretty great year before it, anyways, when the housing bubble and everything was worth a ton of money. So we're seeing growth, but the people who were hurt in the middle class, who were upset, the ones who were mad that their 401ks and all of their insurance plans and all of their retirement funds got destroyed by manufacturing companies that went up. Well, they haven't been helped yet. They've made a little more money, but they haven't been helped yet. And that's what we're trying to figure out why. Like, they're renting now instead of owning, or the house they had all of their money in, that was their retirement. They were going to sell that house and make $300,000, $400,000, and because maybe they paid it off. They don't have that. They lost that. And now this income is great, but they're still dealing with the rental costs, the increased housing costs. They can never get a step ahead.
Yeah. And if you look at what we talked about, with last week with the jobs going up, right? The jobs are going up, but not the dollars in the jobs. And it's, again, it's insane. And it drives me nuts because I can't control it at my job, but we're having a hard time hiring right now because of the pay they want to put in. And so, I sat down to look at budget numbers for the next year with, a couple of the owners of the company and my boss and his boss. And we're just all sitting there talking about it. And it's like, well, what about this? And it's like, okay, well, why don't we should be asking for 10, 15% more over top of what we would ask anyway, because we want to start sustaining better employees. And that's what the market's driving. If we don't do this, we're not going to be able to sustain the same performance that we had before. And that's the same with these housing. What's going to happen is these housing prices are going to escalate. Rental prices are going to escalate, and you're going to drive people into poverty faster. And then what's going to happen from there is, what do people in poverty need? Where does the money come from? The government. And then people are going to bitch about government spending. But what are you going to do if capitalism is choking us? And that's what I feel like's happening in the housing market. We went from one large swing to the opposite side, and it's now choking people. What do you think's going to happen?
It's one of the funny things that you always hear an argument that when someone says, well, we can't raise minimum wage, we can't raise benefits, we can't give people health care, it costs too much. We'd have to raise the price of everything in the country. Well, if you're a capitalist arguing against all of those things, you're basically saying that capitalism cannot support any kind of decent living lifestyle or any decent pay wage for the middle class, for the people that are working. This is a fundamental flaw with unregulated, deregulated capitalism. This is the reason why the idea of democratic socialism and maintaining a good, malleable regulation set on the market is important. It needs to be able to change. You're not going to pick the one right answer for the market one year and not have to change anything the next year. But these types of things need to be done to keep this kind of stuff from happening. We need to have, rental prices are going up by 23% when we know that if they go up more than 15% in a year, that we see a major increase in the social needs for people who can no longer afford food, and so they have to get on bridge card stuff. This is big data. This isn't a difficult thing to do. This information is out there. What we have people that are making an ideological claim against things like, don't regulate housing. Let rich people do what they want if they own a ton of property. They're landowners. Just like James Madison said, we have to protect the minority of the opulent from the majority. This is something that is not complicated. It's not difficult. And if you let the little guy have a voice in the government and the markets, maybe they'd say something that people would recognize and want to pay attention to. I don't know.
I agree. And that's the thing is, and I guess I will get a soapbox a little bit with Bernie Sanders, right? What did Bernie Sanders' principles want to do? What was his goal? And you know, I'll be honest, I could talk about shifts and swings in government and how fast things should change. And we talked a little bit about how we don't want that large shift. We don't want that large swing because it's not beneficial to actual growth without, you know, consequences or minimizing your consequences, right? And if we don't have that, we will fail. But then we can look at somebody like Bernie Sanders, and I just see these attainable things. And I'm looking at the bigger picture here. And in this bigger picture, we see within, I don't know, I lost my house 10 years ago, roughly. Yeah, 9 years ago. So the housing market peaked and then crashed. And 9 years later, we're going on the exact opposite swing. That's a huge shift for a small time period, right? On an evolutionary scale, that's less than a blink of an eye. That's like a tenth of a blink of an eye or something like that, or maybe 100th of a blink of an eye, you know, right? And so why such a big shift? And how can we stop this large shift? Because I don't want to tell people you can't make money. I don't want to tell people you can't live a better life. I don't want to ever stop people from doing it. But at some point, if there's no checks and balances, if there's no regulation that says, hey, you know what, maybe instead of making, I don't know, $100 million this year, you only make $50 million. And maybe people like me and Hannah, who are the ones sweating our butts off, are the ones that could get a little bit more. And what do you think we're going to do with it? Well, Hannah's a tightwad. He'll probably save it. He'll stuff it under his mattress every night. His wife, when I went over there the other week, his wife was telling me about how much money he stashes, and she's like, yeah, he doesn't even know when I just take a couple of dollars out, you know? He just never knows. But
I put it in my pillowcase and sniff it at night.
You sleep on it like Donald or Scrooge McDuck.
I don't have a treasure-filled basement that I can swim in. That would be pretty cool.
Hannah, we need to...
physics says gold swimming is not freaking possible.
But we should do that to your house. Anyway, but thanks for derailing me. But think about it. If companies stop trying to maximize this end of it and started conceding in the middle a little bit, so would you slow certain types of progress down? Yes. But on the opposite side, you would create more happiness and wealth within the common folk, right? And we would be able to sustain a little bit more living. You would change your politics and your social viewpoints faster, in my opinion, rather than dropping people to the very edge.
Well, if we keep pushing the current style of housing growth, income inequality growth, we're looking at creating an aristocracy, right? We're creating an actual separated caste system inside the United States. And here's a really great example. This is another statistic from the City Lab article. It says this is all good news for low-income households, the median income growth that we've had. But these households also face the steepest odds of finding affordable housing. According to the Joint Center for Household Studies, or Housing Studies, annual State of the Nation's Housing Report, the share of renters earning less than $15,000 who are severely cost-burdened, meaning rent soaks up 50% or more of their income, is a staggering 72%. So 72% of the $15,000 or less a year people are spending more than 50% of their income. I know that's a lot of statistics. So here's an easier number to get. 7 million Americans spend more than 50% of their income on their rent. So imagine whatever you make, the government takes their chunk out, and whatever you got left, your house takes 50%. This isn't that weird for some people because there's a lot of people that are spending a ton of money on rent, but trying to survive on $15,000 a year, losing whatever you got to your taxation, even at that level, you're probably not paying much, if at all, taxes.
Well, it depends on how much you can roll over that you lost, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, if you're making $15,000 a year, but you lost $917 billion the year before, then you can pay for like 1,000 years of no taxes or something. But no, I mean, 7 million people pay more than 50% on their income. That's an insane amount of stress on the lower class.
And I agree. And so we need to do something to change that. And the only way we're going to change that is by electing better bloody officials that will actually do something other than criticize each other. Ugh. Anyway, you've been listening to Cellar Door Skeptics and watching us live on Facebook because, yes, we're doing it on Facebook. We'll be right back with the debate between Trump and Hillary, number 2.0, with more Cellar Door Skeptics. We'll be right back, everyone.
Hey guys, this is Wyatt Mathers from the Atheist Avengers podcast. You are listening to the Cellar Door Skeptics. Prepare for the revolution.
Hi, this is Dan, Brian, and Matt with the Godless Revolution podcast. We've had a lot of great guests on this show, such as Russell Glasser, Dan Arrow, Brian Fields, David Silverman, Doug Mesner, a.k.a. Lucian Greaves, and Joey Kirkman, whom we love a lot.
We've also had a lot of really cool local guests. And we're a podcast that likes to fight for the separation of church and state and against anti-skepticism of all kinds.
You should give us a listen, because if you don't, you're going to be really sad.
Make your ears happy. Listen to the Godless Revolution podcast.
If you guys like what you're hearing on Cellar Door Skeptics, please consider sponsoring us on our Patreon page. Our goal at Cellar Door Skeptics is to help promote more science, skepticism, secularism, and humanism in the world. We want to create better content for our podcast and for you, the listener, all while trying to help promote local activism. We're going to strive to make better podcasts, and I'll tell you what, we're even going to contribute some of the proceeds to charity. So please join us over at Patreon.com/Cellar Door Skeptics to make sure that you sponsor us for as little as $1 an episode. Thank you guys so much, and prepare for the revolution.
This is Deborah McTaggart from Beyond the Trailer Park, and you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Now you can see me. You can see me do it. Welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. And no, Jim, I didn't miss it this time. I was paying attention. So, welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Yeah, I'm a little excitable tonight. Hannah gave me an extra day to prepare, so I messed around with some of our settings so that we could try live video. And it probably looks dumb. Hannah's right. It probably looks stupid as shit. You can see my curtain. That's not even a real curtain, right? It's just, it's to dampen the sound in this, echoey mansion. As, like 900 square feet. But,
it's Halloween, man. We should turn the lights down. Put like an orange light in here or something.
Ooh, Halloween stories. Oh, man, I can't wait.
Oh, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
We can like wander around in the back in like weird outfits.
we could if we get good enough, we could do what Weird Al does, and we can have a change between every song, where he does an outfit change, and we'll have to get 20 outfits, and we'll have to do 4 because it's just 4 segments, right? So we'll get 4 outfit changes, and you'll be like, oh, look at them. But we are going to get a second webcam, and so any of those that are listening, if you want to join us and donate on Patreon, it's going to help go towards the second webcam. So you can see Hannah a little bit better, because I realized the webcam picks me up and kind of makes him a little fuzzy. So it focuses, especially when I move my hand, it focuses right on me. I don't know how to fix that.
Well, that, and I'm dressed like I just came from a funeral. I'm blending in with the shadows in the background.
The shadows in the background. So head over to our Patreon account, make sure you donate. And again, we take a portion of that and we contribute it to charity every year. So next week, we're going to make our big announcement, which charity we donated a portion of our funds to. So make sure you stick around for that.
Well, I already donate to the Foundation Beyond Belief, and the Haiti stuff that they've got going on right now. They got a regular deduction from my account every month, and obviously I'm thinking about throwing a little bit more in there because they keep saying that they can't even figure out the death toll from Hurricane Matthew in Haiti, and let's face it, that country could use a little help after some of the horrible things that has happened to it the last 50, 60 years. So I don't know, anybody that's interested, check out the Foundation Beyond Belief. If you're a secular person who doesn't really like the idea of someone handing out a Bible before they hand out some food or a Quran or any kind of religious stuff, the Foundation Beyond Belief, it's vetted, it's checked, they're awesome. I highly recommend them.
It is. And we want to give a shout out to our friends at Paleo Radio, Mr. Jeremiah and Mr. Joe Elder, because we talked about doing Facebook Live. And if you were here tonight, individual sirs, you'd be able to participate in a Cellar Door Skeptics Facebook Live event. Just saying, buddies.
Might be a lot of crazy camera focusing if there was 4 of us in this.
We just have to get 4 cameras. Anyway. Actually, we are looking to improve, so tell us what you think by sending us an email at cellardoorskeptics@gmail.com. Send a tweet at us if you want to. I have been more active on Twitter lately. I have found it shortens my diatribes and gets me from point A to point B a lot faster. I can't say as much, but it is a lot faster than I have been before. So, sometimes my Facebook posts are very long and diatribe-y, and you're kind of like, who the fuck wants to read, 500 words here? You might as well just write a bloody blog at that point. And, so Twitter has been able to translate some of that, and I'm able to have a little more conversations and less time.
I just feel like someone's hitting me in the face with a shovel when I'm on Twitter. It's like, bing! Okay, here's a new idea. Bing! I can't keep my head around any one conversation. It's just 300 things happen in an hour. So I like having slow, drawn-out, long, windy Facebook comic sessions, or something on a blog or something like that. But I mean, you can handle and have that short Twitter stuff. I can't do it. I can't not use grammar. I can't write.
You can.
Bad
you just choose not
sentences
to. You're choosing
on Twitter. I can't do it.
You're choosing, Hannah. Is what you're doing. You're choosing. Stop choosing.
I love commas. I love commas in the right places. I can't. I just can't. Whatever. Twitter is for someone who enjoys that. They can have it.
All right. Fair enough. Anyway, a long enough tangent by Mr. Hannah there. He likes to throw us off topic. But we want to talk about the debate. And I'll be honest, I was not super impressed with the debate. But I will tell you what the one thing I was impressed about is the tone it set, right? It was a different tone. It was a different movement. And while we can debate whether Trump was more civil, whether he wasn't as civil, we can say that he did look like he was a lot more prepared this time. He was prepared to have the conversations. Again, whether we agree with what he was talking about or not, he seemed like he was prepared.
Whether or not he was even on topic.
Well, yeah, that's a whole different story, though. But he was prepared to actually talk.
Yeah.
Whereas last time it seemed like he had to interrupt and get angry more often because he didn't know what was going on and he didn't have an idea where he wanted to go with it. And I can relate a little bit, not to him, but to that logic. If we were to do a complete improv show, I would be a little bit more of a mess. If I do a little bit of study, I'll be pretty decent. And if we go overboard, then I'm going to overtalk you every second because all I want to do is explain exactly what I learned, and I'm going to overtalk you a lot easier because I know way too much and, my ego takes over, yada, yada, yada. And that's what we see out of Trump. We see his ego and how he has to check it. And if we want to talk about social sciences and social experiments, I'll be honest, that debate is great to watch because of Trump. It's great to watch because of how he diverts things, how he attacks needlessly, and how he shifts it and tries to call people out for it. So, we can criticize Trump. We can criticize his tactics. We can criticize his platform, which I don't think we really know what his platform is, honestly. and we could criticize all these things. But what we have to do is we have to at least acknowledge the fact that this debate, he, A, behaved himself a little bit more, and B, he spent his time working his agenda, air quotes for those watching live on Facebook, air quotes. I can do that now. And he spent a little bit more of his time trying to focus on where he wanted to go versus the debate before, where he just felt he had to interrupt and demonize people based on, what he was doing.
Well, he started off that debate like he had jacked a bottle of Prozac. He was so calm and quiet and just controlled. My guess is because the day before all that horrible Trump tape stuff had come out. And I mean, they told him, like, listen, you cannot come out attacking in your usual brazen self. And it took a little ways into it. It took basically until the emails and tax returns and stuff where he basically says, if I was president, you'd be in jail, or basically this really weird dictator side comment. But, I mean, it took a while for him to get to his usual self where he was more self-confident and brazen. But one thing, I mean, he pretty much became and turned into what we expected him to. His slow start surprised me, which seemed like he was kind of susceptible to coaching a little bit. But Hillary, she did even better this time around when it comes to looking presidential. She was way more polished, way more attentive to the people that were asking the questions. And she kept on topic to the point where, like, the Islamic woman who asked a question to Trump, and he used it to just go on this really wild foreign policy tangent and border strength tangent. And Hillary went right to her and said, we want you to be part of our community. We want the Muslim community that isn't radicalized to be part of the American experience. And that, I mean, regardless of you agree with Hillary's positions or not, and her ways of basically taking the country forward and what she wants to do, that is what presidents do. That is the BS politics that we're so used to. It just seems like everything has gone crazy, and that having some kind of moral character and just being nice a little bit is so weird because this political cycle has been so intense.
And I would agree. And you know, that's a sad thing because I do like the fringe. You know, I do like outside candidates. Bernie Sanders was that, right? In all fairness, Donald Trump is that. He's an outside candidate. And I don't like him, and I don't like his policies, and I can't stand anything that comes out of his mouth for the most part. I won't say absolutely, but pretty close to absolute. I don't like the things that come out of his mouth. And I don't know, and it almost feels like you want to elect Hillary because of the fact that Trump is turning around saying, well, guys, I'm insane, you know, like, and he goes, you know, look at his Twitter page, you know, I mean, for Christ, I could bring his Twitter page up right now, and he's using Crooked Hillary as a hashtag, and you're like, what? Why would he do that? And so in a second, I'm going to go to Hillary's page to see if she's using Crooked Trump, because I doubt she is. And, you know, while a lot of his tweets do focus on, hey, go vote, you know, go get registered, hey, this is where I'm going to be in, this is where I won't be in. But he talks about Crooked Hillary all the time. And I just, there's a reason he does that, really. And we could get into that, but I think that kind of deviates from the conversation we wanted to have. But
it would deviate a little bit from the debate, but this is something that I think anybody wants to talk about or have us talk about in the future. I have started to do some vetting. I'm trying to find reputable sources and people who have looked through all of this crazy email gate, WikiLeaks dumps, all of this stuff, and see, okay, what is going on that end? Because there's just too much out there. I don't know who to trust, what to trust, and what's out there is even remotely valid. And Hillary's saying that it's the Russians that are jumping onto the bandwagon and trying to support Trump. And so I'm waiting for a little bit more, like a really good analysis from some really reputable sources, and I've been trying to look around and find them. And so this could be something that we could talk about in the future, just to get some kind of cohesion from all of this stuff. And I would really like a way to say, okay, this is all bullshit, this is all fake, and I don't have a way to do that yet. So
no,
I mean,
and I want to caution you, Han. I want to caution you because there's a lot of tentacles here, and I really want to caution you because I do think we need to criticize Hillary where she needs to be criticized, right? Yeah. And I'm of the mindset, and this is not a popular opinion, and I will admit this live on air and on Facebook and on Spreaker right now. Anyway, I will admit that this unpopular opinion I have is that we should call her out, and we should use that to justify or not justify whether we want to vote for her or not. And originally I came out of the gate very strong when Bernie disappeared, right? And it was Hillary. and I came out very pro-Hillary. If you go back to our older episodes, you can hear me criticizing Hannah, even before Hillary won, about his dedication and, slobberiness over, Bernie. But in all fairness, when I moved to Hillary, I felt attacked. People were giving me all this negative information. They were telling me all these horrible things. And how can you support her? So I did. I sat down. I went through a bunch of stuff. Now, I didn't have WikiLeaks, and that may change my mind.
That's the thing. We want to go through that new information and see how we can debunk it or how we can use some of it.
You're right. But I took all that, and I evaluated all the candidates. Every one of them, even Trump. I sat and evaluated what their positions, what they've come out, their records, how they've voted, how they haven't voted, how they've evolved, right? Hillary's evolved. Trump has de-evolved, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
And then I can look at Jill, and I can look at Gary, and I don't agree with a lot of Gary's stances, and I don't think Gary's going to put forward what I want. And I think Jill's just as far in bed with pseudoscience companies as Hillary and Trump are, just not on the same scale because she's not as popular, right? She hasn't had the chance, and maybe she wouldn't do exactly the same thing. Maybe she wouldn't do what, the Clinton Foundation is doing, right? Maybe she won't do what Trump has done. But in all fairness, I had to sit there and weigh all these things. And when I look at, who's going to push the nuclear codes, who's going to get us in a fight, no matter what Russia did to Hillary, if they did anything, right? She's not going to retaliate in the same way as the guy that is calling her crooked Hillary. Is the guy that's saying now John McCain's a foul-mouthed individual. Well, he's not foul-mouthed. He didn't swear at you, dude.
Well,
all he did is just didn't support you anymore because of your comments. And Hannah, before we go any farther into this debate discussion, I want to address what he considers locker room comments. And I want to talk about that because they started the whole debate off with that. And I don't agree with that at all. I do not like that. And in my conspiracy side of me came out because it's all of a sudden having to hear CNN, who we know is very supportive of Hillary. We know Anderson Cooper is supportive of Hillary. We know all these different things, right? But the big thing here, Hannah, is the fact that what they did is create this big controversy. They fed off the social media stuff. They fed off this. It was like, hey, let's have this conversation. Because I don't agree with what Trump said. I don't in any way, shape, or form. And I don't care what Hillary did or didn't do. It doesn't justify Trump. It does not justify his woman demonizing, his continued sexual harassment, his support of sexual assault, his not understanding, air quotes for the live Facebook audience, of what sexual assault is. It's disgusting. And I would normally say, hey, that was 11 years ago, right? We should just ignore that. Let's just move on. But we can't, right? Because he continues to say things in the same vein. He continues to do the exact same manners and behaviors that he did 11 years ago. And we don't got video 25 years ago, but I bet he was doing the same thing. I wouldn't wager my whole paycheck on it, but I wager a quarter of my paycheck that 25 years ago he was saying and doing the same type of things. And you have to look at that pattern. You have to be able to understand and analyze that. You have to be able to look at Trump and go, you know what? It's not locker room behavior, A. And B, why is that locker room behavior acceptable? Why should we accept this? Why should we accept what you're saying? So you gave us a half apology. I could see you wanting to say something. But that's what he did. He gave a half apology. And then he continued with, well, it's okay. Guess what? It's okay. Don't worry about it. It's just boys being boys. That mentality is disgusting. That is sexist fucking mentality right there. He doesn't seem to understand that if you want to move society forward, if you want to move socialism, to the wayside, then you have to correct your own bloody behavior. If you aren't willing to do that, then somebody's going to come do it for you. That's just the way it's going to be.
Yep. Now, the big thing with Trump and the locker room talk that I disagree with is calling it locker room talk. It's code for guy talk. Men talk to other men, and we say things like, blah, 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 grabber. I mean, none of it even needs to be said again. It's just terrible. But the thing is that it's saying that in, make America great again thoughts, is that America was great when men could say anything they wanted about women. And I used to play, I played high school sports, I played college sports, and I played a single year in a semi-pro baseball league, or a single partial season, whatever, and the locker room wasn't like that. I mean, some of the guys were dumbasses, they were immature, but, I mean, they would talk about girls, they would talk about naked whatever, and they ran around naked and did weird things more than they did the girl talk and stuff. So, I mean, this excuse that you have about this weird hey bro conversation stuff that happens between men and athletes and sports and stuff, obviously the sporting communities came out and said, no, this is wrong. Donald Trump's an asshole, and we shouldn't be able to say the whole locker room thing. You just can't do it. But
I want to caution you, though. You can't say they can't do it.
No, what I'm saying...
But you can say that it's disgusting and disturbing. I'll agree with you there.
Well, they're playing it off. They can't play it off like, oh, it's just locker room talk. And that was like the trending word. They found a really great way to get that to hashtag or go viral. And hopefully it came back, hit them in the face. But in the end, that was the driving topic for the beginning of the debate. And it seems like, he was really calm and quiet because he knew that was coming. He knew that was going to be the first thing everyone was going to hit him with. And then the debate actually moved on to some real stuff like education and taxes and things. So where did you want to go past this horrible locker room garbage? Because I'm so tired of hearing about it now.
Well, you know what? I guess I'm gonna get a little aggressive with you a little bit. I'm sorry you're tired of hearing about it, and I don't mean to be pointed, and I don't mean to be a complete dick about it. But the reason you're tired of hearing about it is because it's not changing, and because people are supporting it. And I want to make it very clear, and whether you agree with me or not, Hannah, is up for discussion. But it's not that I'm not tired of hearing about it. I'm sick of watching people defend it. And I'm sick of watching privileged individuals not call it out. That's what I'm sick of. And that's why it disgusts me. It doesn't just disgust me because it's inappropriate. It disgusts me because a whole sect of society doesn't feel comfortable calling it out. And I call some of this stuff out at work sometimes. And I'll admit, I'm not the best person all the time. And I won't tell you that I haven't said things that are bad or would be considered locker room talk. But I am here to delegate, or not to delegate, but to go on a rant, I guess, and to say, hey, we need to be more supportive of those who are against locker room talk. We need to change how locker room talk happens. We need to go after those that are doing that, and we need to call them out so that it changes, because it is wrong. There is absolutely no reason for it. And we are just sitting here ignoring it, saying, well, let's move on to more important topics. That is deviating and moving the goalposts from the original conversation, which is exactly what Trump wants. We need to not do that. We need to call it out. We need to make it a big issue, because there could be people that just don't want to vote for him based on his locker room talk. And I think a society that gets rid of locker room talk and doesn't consider it some bullshit thing, that they actually take it seriously, that's a society I want to live in. That's a society where we can see the change, we can start considering women as equal, and we can stop pretending people like Trump matter. We just have to. We have to get to that point, because if we don't, it's going to turn into a police state where people have to regulate it, because it is disgusting.
Well, that's definitely what we're going to have to do, and the voice of what we're going to be able to say is going to be to not vote for Donald Trump. I mean, that's the only thing that we can do when it comes to letting society know. You know what? That guy said things like that. Guess what? He doesn't get to be president. He doesn't get what he wants. I mean, at this point, he's so far up there that the best thing we can do is just try to act the way we want society to be.
Yep. Anyway, so where we want to go from there is we I think when he came out with this, how she countered that is fair, because she does a lot of the things I said were from her, right? I'm not going to take credit for what Hillary said. Hillary had amazing responses, especially in the beginning, to his locker room talk. Because the first question they asked about is, how do you think your behavior is appropriate for the youth today? And basically, Trump dismissed any issues he had and said, well, we have bad trade deals. We have bad Iran deals, right? We're screwing everybody over. And look at crooked Hillary. Oh, look at crooked Democrats. He deviated from the conversation. Hillary admitted that some of the things she has done has been questionable and says we need to turn to education. Education, right? How can we fix the youth? You know what? Hannah, you and I may not be too far gone, but we're not far from the point where our cognitive stops changing. At some point, society and evolution has shown that we don't continue to mentally evolve at the same rate we do when we're in our 20s and 30s. That will happen. But we have to train our youth to see these things. And we talked about this a little bit last week with that social compound group, and I don't remember the name of it now, that you mentioned, where they isolated people at a certain rate to get rid of the bad issues, that social experiment.
Yeah, Auroraville.
Yeah. And so, well, no, it wasn't Auroraville. You mentioned a book you read.
Oh, the Walden book.
Yes, the Walden book. Yes. Go back to our last episode and listen to the end of it, and you'll hear Hannah tell you exactly the name of it. But when we moved on, she basically told him, hey, you're saying racist things. You're saying anti-Mexican, anti-Muslim things. And you're saying all these other things. Do you really feel that your personality and disposition are fit for the nation? Because if he kept it to himself, it'd still be wrong, but at least he wouldn't be propagating it. He wouldn't be trying to re-educate. He's trying to push his shit down and re-educate other people in his mentality, and it's disgusting. And in the end, he dismisses it. And that's the sad thing is, he says it's just words. And you're like, what? But we go on to the third question, right? And he talks about how Bill Clinton did similar things. But then he never apologizes for his things. And he just takes and moves the goalposts.
Well, he's just pushing blame.
Yes.
Like somehow
he's blaming the victim. That's what he's doing. And if you watch his demeanor on stage, Hannah, and it's funny because Dennis brought this up earlier in the chat, and for those of you listening, you can go to our chat room on Spreaker, and you can engage in this conversation. And Dennis said this. He said, basically, the big thing here is that Trump basically tried to hunker over and lurk over Hillary. And it's disgusting, right? And we want to talk about, Hillary could have made better points. She could have divulged more of her plan. She could have done all these other things. But just her being on stage with somebody who is positioning himself as a bully is amazing. That takes guts. And I don't care what anybody else says. Hillary had the guts to stand on that stage, to listen to him tear her down for an hour and a half, to call her names, to lurk behind her.
Lurked. He lurked.
Lurked. He did.
Yeah, no, it was legit. He was just like this big, looming, sniffling.
It's a bully attitude. and it was. Yeah, sniffling. He did. He sounded like he was on coke or something. But he, and so somebody, we can just talk about what she said, but if you look at the atmosphere he was trying to create a scare tactic, she did very well. She may not be super popular with people, right? She may be Nixonist in how she acts. Huh?
He's the best of the two. That's the way I keep it right now.
Yeah, he was peeking at her notes. Jim, that's a good one. I didn't think about that. He's peeking at her notes.
Yeah.
And anyway, so the next topic I wanted to talk about was I don't want to get into her emails and whether they were or whether they weren't, right? But that came up, and they asked whether she was careless. And I think the best part of that is she admitted she made a personal mistake. Now, we can debate whether she did this on purpose, whether she created, any sort of a type of issue, right? Whether she was honest.
It was a word for word almost apology from when the emails were brought up during the Democratic debates. They were brought up. Bernie didn't attack them, but they brought him up, and she said it was a mistake, and she apologized. She was much more apologetic and humble at this than she was during the Democratic debates, but it's basically the same thing. She's just simply admitted it, but she didn't admit intent or anything like that.
Yes. And so there is a discussion I've been having with another individual on Twitter, and you can go find us on Twitter at CellarDoorSkep, and you can go read through our conversations. But one of the things I found is I was told that basically she deleted the emails the day after she got a subpoena. I have an article that talks about timelines. There is a 3.5 to 4 month timeline when she could have deleted them. And they don't know for sure. So to say she deleted them as soon as she got a subpoena is illogical because they don't have that evidence. And we can deduct and passively go around this, right?
Well, the big thing for me on these is just, who do we trust? Because I'm not an expert in tracking, figuring out when the emails did what. We need to have people like reporters, investigative journalists, and federal bodies that investigate things that we trust. I don't really trust the FBI that much anymore. The CIA has always been kind of fishy. The NSA is watching you change your underwear, for all I know. And, I mean, our journalistic integrity has gone down pretty much. So I don't have a good way to check who and what is lying. And so that's one of the things that I want to talk about in an upcoming show, is we'll try to break down some of the conspiracies that we've been seeing before this coming election.
Exactly. So on the next topic after the emails, and how about this? If we get enough messages in some form that want us to talk about the emails, we'll dedicate a whole 2 segments to the emails. We'll do the research. We'll spend the time. But right now, I don't feel it's a pivotal enough point for me to sway my vote. And I've challenged others to sit with me and help me do this. And if others want to join in and do that, I'll be more than happy. But I'm not going to listen to just WikiLeaks. I'm not just going to listen to this source. I'm not going to go, Washington Post, right? We got to take everything and analyze it in a very large perspective. But if we go on to the next question, they talked about healthcare and how to bring healthcare costs down. And Hillary had to walk a fine line here, and I disagree a little bit with her. And my criticism of her is I think she should be able to criticize Obama and what he did and didn't do openly. And I don't think Obama would take offense to it because Obama had his own agenda. Obama did what he wanted to do as much as he could while fighting, 2 Republican, areas, right?
And the insurance companies who didn't want to give in to all his demands. He had to compromise. He had to basically, it was more like commiserate, but he had to do what he could. So he started off, he campaigned in 2008 for single-payer healthcare. He tried to do that. And he couldn't get it done. He got the Affordable Care Act, which is kind of a blend between the old system and the new system. And hopefully, like Hillary says, she can make it better. And then eventually, a real democratic socialist will get in and turn it into a single-payer system like Medicare.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, and this is where I look, and I'll be honest, Hannah, this is, I less care a little bit what Hillary says because she talked about how now women can be harmed. That's a fair point, right? But in the end, she's just reiterating what Obamacare is. She's just explaining to people who are too ignorant or don't want to know what Obamacare has done and just saying, well, fuck all.
Yeah, people keep saying that it's unsuccessful and a horrible program. It's actually been a really great program. It's been expensive, but it's been a really great program, too.
Yep, and there's no lifetime limits. Women can't be harmed more than men. She wants to save, what is good of it and change some of the issues. And honestly, that's moving to a single-payer system and regulating insurance companies. But we'll see if she does that.
Wishes.
Yeah, but it did give more people health care. It did give people more opportunity to have health care. And and we got to go to commercial in a minute because I need another drink because I'm going now and I'm drinking all my whiskey and I'm going to get something else. But what was Trump's rebuttal? Trump had no rebuttal to this other than it was a disaster. We need to fix this. All we're going to do is take more money and increase the debt. What do you propose, Trump? Let's repeal and replace it. What are you going to replace it with? well, let's go back to the old way. Well, what? So you want to go back to the old way? You want to go back
where people could be refused if you were sick trying to get coverage.
Yeah, if you got cancer and they knew you got cancer, you had expensive-ass health care if you even got it at all.
Yeah. And then if you didn't get it and you went into the emergency room, then the government funded it all because they won't just let you die in the parking lot.
Yes. And I think a good statistic study, and I think it's too early to do this. I think we're going to have to wait 10 years. But a good statistic study would show and look at what healthcare costs were, what it covered, what it didn't cover. And they would look at how many people did in mortality rates, right? And disability rates. And then they should be able to look at Obamacare and see if any of that went down or up. And I will say, if it does trend to go up, so more people are dying, more people are disabled and not able to work and not getting health care, then I would agree with you, Trump, that it's bad. But you didn't prove it. You didn't bring anything. All you wanted to do was replace it with what we had. You want to let capitalism try and dictate what our healthcare system should be. Come on. And the one thing that infuriates me more than anything else is he kept saying Canadians are coming here. Hey, Keith, I would love you to come here, but don't fucking come here for our health insurance, Keith. Come here because Chris and I are awesome and want to have beers and whiskey with you, not because of our healthcare. And he is proven wrong, and I'll throw the link into the description. But we found it. It was fact checked that 7% of people from Canada come over for health care. They don't come over because it's faster, Trump. That's not how it works. That was a 93% lie. Hello?
Well, they talk about the big reason why they wouldn't come here is because a lot of times those kinds of procedures cost 3, 4, 10 times as much here. I mean, even if they wanted to come here, they couldn't afford it. It's crazy. Like, if you don't have... there was a big story that went around. The hospital charged some people $40 to hold their kid after it was born. Like, they charge you itemized for everything. It's insane in the United States.
And nobody's regulating that. And I'll admit, that's part of my problem with how the Affordable Care Act is rolled out, is they did provide all these awesome things, but they didn't put the insurance companies in check in the same way that Bernie wants to. And I know we keep talking about Bernie, and I'm sorry, Hannah, because I got a little bit of the burn because, I saw some of his speech from Grand Rapids, and I got really excited again to hear him, And I'll admit, it would be nice, right? And
I really wanted to hear Bernie and Trump go against each other.
Yes,
that would have
Trump
been
was
really
too
cool.
scared.
Like a battle of the outsiders. I mean, Hillary is great. I think she would have actually been a good in between the two, because you can see that Bernie isn't that insanely outside to the right or the left. And Trump is insanely to the right. And Hillary is in the middle, in the centrist, slightly war hockey way that she is. And we would all get to see a little bit of that, too.
It is. But we got to take a quick commercial break so I can refill my drink. I can get Hannah a drink so he doesn't pass out from his flu. And so I can catch my breath as we talk about more debate when we come back with Cellar Door Skeptics. We'll be right back, everyone.
This is Heretic Woman, part of the panel of Holy Crap, the Vlogcast, and you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Hi, this is Trav Mamone of the By Any Means podcast. Join me every week as I talk to activists, bloggers, and podcasters about the intersections between social justice and humanism. Go to www.byanymeans.com, that's by spelled B-I, to listen to the podcast and read my blog. Besides, aren't we all a little bi-curious?
As if you couldn't get enough of us already, make sure you check us out on Twitter at CellarDoorSkep. Follow us, share our tweets, and hell, tweet at us any questions you have using Cellar Door Skeptics hashtag. Remember, follow us on Twitter for all our recent shows. Now, back to the show.
This is C-Web from ParanormalSkepticAcademy.com, and you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics. Prepare for the revolution. Jose.
And we are back. Thank you all for sticking around for that amazing segment. And no, we're not done.
We didn't go anywhere. We've been sitting here the whole time, we promise.
Yeah, sure, Hannah. But if damn it, you're throwing me off my game. And it's live, so I can't edit it out. Anyway, welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you so much for sticking around for the last segment. We talked about rental economics. We talked quite a bit about science and aliens. And then we got into the debate. And I'll admit, I was a little ranty, right? I'll admit I was a little bit ranty. And
It's when I turn my hearing aids down and start getting that loud. That's when I know it's a Tanner rant.
And you can watch the video. If you're watching on Facebook Live, make sure you tweet at us or do something. Tell us you like it. Come on. Somebody tell us if you like the Facebook Live. Because otherwise, I'm not going to go through the hassle. But you can, if you watch the video, you can see when I start to go on a rant, Hannah just sits back. And it's funny because he was waving. I think you were waving at me earlier. I think you were waving at me or something.
I just hop around and do some jumping jacks.
Like, I think you were waiting, like, hold on, I got something to say. Oh, teacher, and it's like, I can't see you normally, and now I can see you on this one screen, but if I'm not on that screen, I can't see you because I need, like, 3 monitors to do all of this stuff. Or maybe we just need to bring on, like, an intern that wants to help us run some of this so we will look a little bit more professional. But it's been fun.
I feel like the kid in A Brave New World from Aldous Huxley. It's like, this whole new technocratic world that we're discovering. Every week we get a new giant piece of it. And it's like, wow, it's shiny. Maybe you get a new Samsung phone next week and we can videotape ourselves exploding.
No, yeah, there you go. It'll explode on us. You all know they stopped production on those things, right?
Yeah, but they're still out there. You can see someone driving down the road and they make a hard left because their phone just exploded in their left pocket.
Don't be like that person. Do not buy one of those.
Don't turn
Samsung
left
phones.
when your leg explodes. You only go right and pull off the road. Unless you're in England, then you turn left when you get off the road.
That's right. But let's go back to Trump. And I think, in all fairness, Hannah, I need to give you a few minutes so that you actually get to say something. And I'm going to step away for a quick second because I want to let you talk. I want to let you be able to express, because the next thing I want to get into is I want to talk about the Islamic phobia discussion that they had and about Syria. Because for me, the major topic is not war, but that is because how it affects everything else. And I'll be honest, I'm very, very anti-war, very anti that. I'm very, not wanting to be an interventionist. And I do not like that part of Hillary. I do not like that part of Obama at all. That part bothers me quite a bit. But I think it's fair because you have more of a neutral stance, and as somebody that agrees with me but has a different opinion, I think it's fair to give you the chance to let you go on your own little rant and to tell us what you feel out of the debate they talked about in terms of Islamophobia and what they're going to do with Syria.
I just wish they would have talked a little bit about past American foreign policy and the failures, besides Trump saying that it's all Hillary's fault. That's the big one for me. I mean, we can criticize what Obama's done, what Hillary did as Secretary of State. We can easily criticize that. And we can see the results, a lot of the things that have been happening in the last few years. We can see the growth of groups like ISIS from the interventions that the Republican Bush and Cheney administrations created. This is real time. We're seeing it develop as it's happening. But look back even further. Look back to the first intervention with Iraq when Saddam invaded Kuwait. And we started to like him, then we hated him, then we started to like him. We're enablers. We're like these horrible people trying to give people at AA booze. And then we're pissed when they get out of control and they get mad at us for messing up their system. I just wish there was a little bit more accountability when it comes to these debates. I wish they knew a little bit more, and I wish they would kind of come out and say, listen, I know that we've made some mistakes in the past, and we need to change what we do. And Hillary's kind of doubling down on the policing system, but not so much the ground force, more of this eye in the sky and this chess move master who's running groups here and there and putting money in places, because that's what her foreign policy and her Secretary of Statehood did. And Trump, obviously, I can't tell if he wants to pull all the soldiers out or put all the soldiers in. and just blow up everything or get everything out and let all of the Middle Eastern groups just take care of themselves without any U.S. help. I mean, we're talking backing out of the UN and that kind of NATO help. I don't know where he is, and I'm terrified that he doesn't either. I don't think he knows enough about what we've done in the past, about the mistakes that the United States made in all of its imperialistic endeavors. And I would love to see a little bit more in-depth and specifics for both of those candidates as to what the hell they're going to do with the mess in the Middle East, and the rest of the world is watching us, and they don't know either.
You're right, and I think they did touch on some of that, right? They did talk about it, and I guess let's skip over the Islamophobia thing and go kind of into what they talked about for Syria and what they talked about for changes. I do not like drone strikes, Hannah. I do not like them. I do not like what's happening in Aleppo.
Hey,
I'm Gary Johnson.
You got it eventually.
I did. I don't like that. I have a really hard time with the war and us not intervening, right? I do, because I don't want to intervene for political reasons, right? I want to intervene because children are dying. Innocent people are dying. Innocent people are caught in the middle of it in a third world country, basically, because of this. That bothers me. It bothers me that any presidential candidate would want to be part of it. Now, I understand we can't just back out super fast, right? We can't just
we made this
ignore.
mess. It's our responsibility to fix it a little bit, but I really think everyone should be involved as opposed to us running and gunning.
Yes. And I did not, and this is where I'm going to criticize Hillary a little bit. I did not hear her talk about what she's going to do other than she wants a majority Middle Eastern coalition. But she's not looking to the UN. And we can talk about religion and how religion doesn't want a one world order. But we're at that point, I think, where we kind of need some of that. We need that for humanistic growth. We need it because we have to be able to protect some of these other things. We have to be able to protect innocent people. And I don't believe us intervening in any of these countries is going to motivate them to change. I don't believe that us killing people will be a strong motivation to change. But I do think that we can go support them humanitarianly, even if it means the cost of lives. And I'm not saying that we should go in and put a bunch of people up on the lines and be like, okay, you're gonna go dig wells in, the part where ISIS walks through every day. Like, I'm not proposing that. But I'm also saying we need to stop the violence as much as we can. Because that violence that we're doing is creating people like Trump. Because what happens is we're going and creating the new ISIS in some sorts. We're going and killing innocent people. Those people are, again, Maslow's pyramid. They're on that bottom level because they're being murdered, by large people, by people sitting in offices with drones. They're like, hey, look, I got a video game joystick, and oh, yep, they're dead. Remember the Arrested Development episode where Buster joins the army and they put him, and he's like, oh, it's a little video game. Oh, look at these little people.
No,
you don't? Huh. You need to go watch that.
I've never seen. I've watched a couple of Arrested Developments, but I never really got into that one either.
But all right. Stop derailing. But the point, though, Hannah, the point of it is,
I get your point that you're trying not to support any kind of collateral damage. Like we said a while during the 50th anniversary episode, is that there's no good part about collateral damage. I'm looking right now at a headline from CNBC: a Saudi-led coalition airstrike hits a Yemeni funeral, killing 140 people. Like, they may have been trying to kill one person in that funeral. I don't care. It's not okay. And so we talk about these Islamic coalitions and stuff. Well, I tell you what, the Saudis aren't exactly the best ones, because I wouldn't put them that far away from a sophisticated ISIS-like mentality, because we've seen what they do on a regular basis, the totalitarian, authoritarian way they lead their country. But we have to figure out a way to get these people into a more secular coalition like the UN to respect it and that way we can create this, NWO that you mentioned, that everyone kind of uses as a cookie cutter way to survive in the United Globe, however they would want to call it. Because in the end, if we keep hanging on to nationalism, and Jeremiah wanted to talk about how he's pretty supportive of nationalism, so I mean, once he comes back on, we can grill him a little bit about that. Because during the debate or the interview that we did with him, he talked a little bit more about it. But regardless, this whole idea that getting the coalitions together, that's an awesome idea. But I don't know how they would do it, and I don't believe Hillary can just say, "Okay, everybody, we're all going to get along and we're all going to take care of the bad guys." It's going to be a lot more work than that.
Yep. And so what they talked about, one of the questions that came up, right, is with Islamophobia on the rise, how will you keep people safe who believe in Islam, right? So let's bring it back home. Let's walk away from Syria for a second and bring it back home, right? Trump said that Muslims should report when they see problem. That's what he's saying. He's like, yeah, if you're a Muslim and you believe in Islam, blah blah blah, you need to report that. And he thinks that's the first step at spotting Islamic terrorists inside of the United States.
Yeah, basically what he said was, if you're a Muslim and you see someone doing something illegal, that you should say something about it. And Hillary also said she agreed. The Muslim community needs to self-police with respect. We're not talking go out and be Sharia law. We're talking, if you see someone who looks like they're doing some terrorist activities, or they're amassing weapons and bombs, that you should tell the police, and that they shouldn't be afraid of the police shooting them. And I mean, there's a bunch of levels to this that make this telling the police that you saw someone with a gun is not the safest thing in the world these days.
But I'm going to stop you one quick second, because maybe this is going to play into personal experience too much. But we have a friend, Muhammad, and his girlfriend Mara, and they posted an article that talks about this, that talks about how there was an individual that went into a mosque that heard a new person talking about terrorism, and how they had to report it, and how their community, others had to report it to get him to be noticed by the FBI and other things, right? It's real, Hannah. That is happening. I don't think those people are hiding as much as what Trump wants to think. I'm sorry. But that's not what I'm seeing. And again, yes, my stance does come from personal experience. My stance comes from what I'm seeing. And yes, terrorism does exist. And yes, there are people that are afraid.
But it's incredibly rare.
But yes. And so, Trump, the answer is not they need to go report. The answer is we need to create a safe environment where we support those that do believe and report. That's what he missed. I'm sorry, but we talk about, how we talked earlier about how we want to change, how women are viewed, right? And it's not up to me to change it. It's up to society to change their misogynistic style ways and their passive aggressive mannerisms, right? But we can only do that through calling people out. Well, you can't tell the marginalized part of society they need to call people out more. We need to support them when they do call it out, and we need to do the same thing. And in all fairness, Mr. Joe Elder and I got into it a little bit over, Sam Harris and how they talk about these things, and how, there's a regressive left and blah, 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 and the alt-right. And I'm saying is that Islamophobia exists, and I'm saying it's true, though. There are there are Muslims out there in America who do not support all of the humanistic ideas, right?
Well,
and it's
there's
okay
Christians that don't support it either.
Exactly. It's not just one sect. It's a problem that is part of the infection of fear, which is driven from some other source. And a lot of times it is driven from religion. And we should be able to criticize other religions, but we all should support people from it. We shouldn't be on the extreme attack phase, and we shouldn't push the burden off onto the minority that's being marginalized. Why can we not take, responsibility and help them? We can admit we have privilege. We can admit that, this may come easier for us, and we want to help speak out as allies to them. We want to support them.
Oh, without question. I mean, the whole thing is getting everything even to everyone is pretty much on the same playing field. This is bringing the income equality, the women's equality, the LGBTQ equality. The whole idea is to getting the majority of the people in the country on a relatively even playing field. And then leaving society with enough room to have eccentricities, to have cultures, to have groupings of people and interesting knots of activity, and not having a perfectly uniform, sterile, everybody does the right thing society. And also having some kind of just basic critique of everything, where we all say, okay, listen, this is okay, but don't act terrible, don't be a complete douche or something along those lines. And when that empathic response about, okay, if you're going to be really mean to someone because they're Islam or if they're Islamic or they're a Muslim, then what's the reciprocating of feeling? Is that would them be doing the same thing to you? And these types of things we need to think a little bit more about. It's like, if you think about moving into this country, let's say you're from the southern Soviet blocks that broke apart, and you're part of the Greek Orthodox Church, and you come over to, I don't know, an incredibly dark Baptist setting in like North Carolina or something. They're going to ostracize you and treat you like garbage more than likely because you're a different thing than they are. But that's not Greek Orthodox phobia. That's people being mean to other people that think differently. And that pushes the new people in to not like your country much, but also think you're a bad person. And I would think that it would coalesce them more and more into just basically probably being able to or willing to strike out against society. Like, think about the Islamic people here. We attack them on in media, and then when they get angry, we act like, well, you can't do that. You're not allowed to be angry. You're not allowed to say that you don't like the way we're treating you. Well, the people that are more progressive, we will listen. But the people that are conservative, they're just like, no, get out of my country. And that's the response that they get. And neither of these candidates is really showing a way to get around that Islamophobia, that ignorance. They just offer like, well, I want you to report to people if you see anything bad. And the other one says, well, I want you to be able to get schooling and stuff. I just think that they're saying the same things that politicians have been saying for the last 10, 12 years. And I would love to see some creativity as something new.
Yeah. And this is kind of where Trump started to go off the deep end here, right? He started to, he has bad rhetoric. And a question came up, is the Muslim ban still part of your platform, Trump? Is it, right? And Trump basically said, well, no, it's not. We're now talking about extreme vetting. And in this segment here, and this is the funny part, They say, well, you do know that your governor, Governor Pence, your vice president candidate here, said this, and he said, no, we don't do this, and he says, well, I didn't approve that, I didn't agree, I don't agree with him on that, and
that was awesome.
And you just sit there and you go, holy shit, I don't like Pence at all, but I actually feel bad for him for a second, like I'm sitting there going, holy crap. That's not going to be good for Pence.
I saw reports that said that he was utterly inconsolable and apoplectic. It was awesome. Like, just, I'm sure he was stomping around, breaking things in whatever hotel room he was in.
Yeah. And so Trump denied it and said that they're using what's called extreme vetting. And Hillary went on to talk about, well, no, you're using religious tests and you're creating a problem that's creating discrimination. And I agree with that. She's right. You are. And he's like, well, no. I'm just going to force bad people out of the country who will cause crime and those who let drugs pour into our society. And it's like, damn it, you just moved the goalposts again, Trump. And I got to go turn the explicit tag now. I think that's the third swear word I've let slip.
I don't know. Depends on what they call a swear word.
Yeah, that was. And Trump, you're moving from the Islamic community to Hispanic individuals, right? You're now talking about Mexicans. Damn it, dude. What is wrong with you? And so then let's move on. Let's go past this. So then they asked about issues, right, between the public and private positions, right? Can you, and they called it two-faced, and I don't know if I would call it that specifically, but they talked about, can you have two different positions? Can you be two different people? And Hillary says, well, think about it this way. Look at the Lincoln movie. Look how hard it is to confess, and that he had to use 2 different types of arguments to get amendments passed. Trump's response? That Hillary's just pushing the issues off on the Russia, and there's no evidence. Wait, damn it, Trump, you didn't even address the question. You just diverted it. And he's just like, oh yeah, Hillary is blaming the Russians. Well, no, she didn't. She didn't say any of that. She talked about Lincoln. And so I'll be honest, in that case, I think both of them actually avoided the question, you know? Neither one of them actually addressed, should you be two-faced or not? And Hayden, I think that's a topic we should address next week, because I do think that's a fair discussion that could be had, right? I don't like religion. I'm an anti-theist, but I don't believe for moving humanity forward that anti-theism is going to be the way of the future. I don't think anti-theism always leads to humanism.
Well, I've heard the best way I've heard it described. Well, Christopher Hitchens once said that if given the ability to remove religion, to ban religion, he wouldn't, because that just doesn't work. But the thing I've always heard is that the idea of atheism itself is that one day, with enough education and enough time battling against pseudo whatever, that eventually the label of atheism will not be necessary, because it simply won't be assumed that you have some kind of, we like to call it, irrational belief system. And so that's really what I always say to it. So like, there isn't like about banning. Being anti-theist to me is basically saying that in the future I hope there are no religions, or they're like a weird story in horror horror books or something.
Yeah. And so as I think we need, let's move on, because we got 15 minutes here. I don't want to go over 2 hours tonight, because I want to conserve everybody's time. I don't even know how long Facebook will let us. How long do you think it'll let us go, Hannah? I don't know. That's kind of weird.
Ask Mark. We got him in the closet, duct taped.
That's weird. Weird. You said something that's weird, Hannah. Anyway, so they started talking about taxes, and this is a point for me, right? Because I am a house owner now, and I'm at the point where I want to look at what taxes are spent on, how they're going, because I don't agree with a lot of, even with how Obama used some of our taxes. And so Trump made a fair point. They asked, what tax position will you help to get the wealthiest to pay their fair share? And Trump says, I'm going to get rid of carried interest. And again, that's another segment, Hannah. Take notes while we're talking, because I want to do that. I'm going to talk about carried interest and what it really means and how to change the tax code, right?
Yeah, or you could just act like Warren Buffett and just simply not use it and give away tons of money and be an awesome person, because he is.
Okay, and I don't know, so I'm not going to agree with you or not agree with you. I do agree that he didn't use the carried interest like Trump did. And I actually agree with you on that, because he came out and said, fuck you, Trump, don't fucking goddamn tell me, that you and I are similar, asshole.
Now you're going full bore for that explicit.
I just say, we hit the explicit tag, I've had enough to drink. It's Trump, just fucking Trump. Trump does this fucking shit to me. But, so he did, he says, I'll get rid of carried interest. And you gotta think about it. That's a minority viewpoint in terms of the Republican Party. That's not been talked about, aggressively by the Republican Party. It has been talked about by fringe candidates. On the Democratic side, in all fairness, it's not been talked about by major Democratic candidates either, until now. Now Hillary's kind of forced to talk about it. And I guess I'm torn between whether it matters that she was forced to talk about it and that it's going to change, right? Because if it just changes, that benefits all of us. Yeah, I did, Dennis. I blew the not swearing. Fair enough. But we got to think about it. Is it good that even though she was not against it, that she said, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be against carried interest now? Or is it bad that for 30 years she never supported this position? And a lot of major Democrats don't. Bernie does. Sorry. Again, I'm on a Bernie kick recently. So
Bernie and Elizabeth Warren really have always been the people that were really outspoken and further to the left.
Yep. And, we can say Trump, last debate, Trump says, well, look at me, I'm smart. I didn't have to pay taxes. Well, dude, I don't think that's smart. I think you're an asshole. I think you're an asshole because you took advantage of it, and until you decided you wanted to run for a position of power, now you're pointing out the issues. It'd be like me at my job and me walking into my job and saying, I could fix all these problems, but I'm going to ignore it because it benefits me to be able to do less work. And then all of a sudden when I want a promotion or I want to lead people, I'm like, hey, by the way, look at all these things that have happened. And they're like, well, why didn't you bring this up years ago? He's doing the same thing that Hillary, he accused Hillary of. He went after Hillary for not doing anything for 40 years in all her political career, right? But yeah, he did the same thing. He had enough money, he could have influenced politics, and he didn't. He took advantage of it. So if Hillary's wrong, Trump, you're wrong. You're the same thing. So you don't get to sit here and judge another fucking person if you're going to do the same fucking thing. You don't get to do that. And I agree. We should get rid of carried interest. We should tax the rich more. And you know what Trump kept saying? He's like, well, Hillary's just going to raise your taxes. And then she turned around and what did she say, Hannah? She said, anyone who makes less than $250,000 a year is not going to see a raise on their taxes.
Nothing wrong with that.
So, hey, Hannah, do you make less than $250,000?
Yes, I do.
Do I make less than $250,000?
I'm pretty sure. I don't know what you
You're
do
pretty
for
sure
that
I do.
gold nugget pile you got in the basement.
All right, I do. I make a lot less than that. Okay? Do you feel that the majority of the public makes less than $250,000?
As far as I know, it's less than 90% or more than 90% of the country pays less than $250.
So less than 10% are going to see a tax increase.
That's how much money the top end makes.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. And we're looking at corporate taxes and stuff too. So Trump wants to reduce corporate taxes down to 35%, which is no big deal because a lot of the biggest corporate companies a lot of the business corporations in this country, they don't pay any anyways. They get deductions where they pay no income tax. GE is a great one. It's an example that everyone always uses. But you look at group companies like Apple. Apple just said, no, we're not paying our taxes. Great. Thanks, guys. We really appreciate the American well-being. But these are reducing taxes by 15% or 30%. I mean, yeah, sure. You know what that's going to do? That's going to help a couple of small companies, and it's going to defund the government so intensely that I mentioned this in a past episode, that if the government stopped spending anywhere from 3 to 5, 7% of its total spending every year, the government is so big and so intertwined with our economy that we go into a recession. That's what happens. And so if you want to take 35% away from corporate taxes in this country, we will go into a recession immediately. We can't even pass the budget that's coming up for this year, the new fiscal year, because money is stretched so thin. We've got to figure out ways to get more money into the tax system equally so that we all distribute the load fairly, and so that my taxes are not 30% of mine and then like Mitt Romney is only 14%. Even though he's worth millions and millions and millions of dollars, and when he's done paying his taxes, he's still got millions and millions, even if you paid the same 35% rate that you and I pay.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And so let's take one more commercial break, Hannah. Can we do that? Do you have enough time to spend with us for another 15 minutes?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm sorry, folks. I enjoy this, and maybe this is a guilty pleasure. Maybe I'm just being selfish here. Maybe I'm doing it for Hannah. I enjoy this discussion, and I got so much more to talk about the debate. I haven't even got to address my major point, right? So we're going to take a real quick commercial break. Make sure you continue to listen to us on Spreaker. Follow us on Facebook, because we'll be right back with more Cellar Door Skeptics and more fucking debate.
Woman, part of the panel of Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. And you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics.
Hi, this is Trav Mamone of the By Any Means podcast. Join me every week as I talk to activists, bloggers, and podcasters about the intersections between social justice and humanism. Go to www.byanymeans.com, that's by spelled B-I, to listen to the podcast and read my blog. Besides, aren't we all a little bi-curious?
As if you couldn't get enough of us already, make sure you check us out on Twitter
at Cellar Door Skep. Follow us, share our tweets, and hell, tweet at us any questions you have using Cellar Door Skeptics hashtag. Remember, follow us on Twitter for all our recent shows. Now, back to the show.
This is C-Web from ParanormalSkepticAcademy.com, and you're listening to Cellar Door Skeptics. Prepare for the revolution. Jose.
Now, back to the show.
Hey, Jim. We didn't miss it. Ha ha ha. Welcome back to Cellar Door Skeptics. Sorry for that long intro. And those of you watching on Facebook, I'm very sorry you can't hear our commercials. We are going to fix that in the next couple of weeks if we continue to do live videos, which I think we're going to do because I think it's good. Hannah, do you like the live videos?
I think it's pretty cool. It's a little bit breakneck watching you bounce back and forth from 87 buttons. You have to click everything, and we got 2 chats going, and I don't know. I'm tired. I'm full of germies. I don't know what the hell. I'm trying to get healthy so I can think straight and get all my hours in at work, too. And, I mean, I got to deal with you screaming about Trump in my ear right now.
Come on. All right. We're on the final stretch, folks. We are. But I didn't want to end it because we didn't get all the way through the debate. And I'll admit, maybe I didn't plan the episode in all fairness well enough to cover the whole debate. And I think we should have spent a little bit more time on it. But I want to thank Jägermeister, the drink of choice, for all the help you've given us through this discussion.
That's right. We used to
have fake commercials. This is a fake commercial, folks, right? Jägermeister.
We used to do it for whiskeys and all kinds of stuff.
Of Cellar Door Skeptics fans. Maybe it is. I have a friend that listens to my podcast that would tell you, I don't think so, buddy.
Well, there's probably about 150 people that will see this, and they will dry heave directly into their mouths, and they look at Jaeger.
They'll be like, why the hell does he bring that up? Anyway. I did not miss it, Jim. Thank you, Jim. Jim, you know what, Jim? Message me privately. I think we found each other on Facebook. Message me privately. I want to have you over the house to have drinks. So, Jim, if you're listening, and for those of you in Grand Rapids, message us. If you listen to the podcast and you want to hang out with Hannah and I one of these times, let us know. Let us know. We will be more than happy to entertain others. So you do have to be quiet during the episode unless you have a fancy mic that we can plug in. But we can have 3 other people plug in.
And
that sounds weird, doesn't it?
If
I say it that way.
If you're cool enough, we can put you in zombie makeup for the Halloween episode.
You could. Yeah, let's pack the house with zombies. Oh, my wife's gonna love you, Hannah. I can already hear the dissension coming, and I can see my phone's gonna blow up in a few seconds saying, "Fuck you, asshole! What is wrong with you for inviting 50 people over to our house? They will not fit." But anyway, in all seriousness, let's finish this off with debate talk, right? Let's finish the debate off. Let's finish the episode off because we've already been 2 hours out. And those of you watching the live feed on Facebook, he does have fancy mics. Those of you watching on Facebook, I'm sorry you're going to miss our commercial music. We will fix that. So they moved on and they talked about this. And they asked the question, and I think this is a really good question. Can you be president for all of the people? And Trump goes, absolutely. And you're like, dude, that's all right. You know what he followed it up with? Inner cities. Damn it. What are you doing, dude? Like, you just isolated part of the nation. And I think
that's like the major demographic he's got to appeal to. So he's got to say something about them.
But that's what are you doing, dude? What are you doing, man? It's weird, and maybe I'm just against the spirit I seen, but it almost feels like he goes, Dennis, you're welcome to come over and hang out. But it almost feels like Trump is, looking at this and going, hey, I know what I got to get. So I'm just going to appeal to just those people tonight because everybody else will forgive me because I say horrible things and they forgive me anyway. So I'm going to appeal to them. And you just want to go, Trump, seriously? Is that what you're doing? You're going to appeal to that specific,
Well, he didn't actually address most of the questions that he got. He came in with pre-programmed thought, random processes. So this one they talked about, hey, who else do you need to talk to? And Trump went, well, I can't say black people directly, so I'm just going to say the inner city, which is white code for urban black people. Like, Trump, good luck, dude. Everybody can see through your crap, and I'm not really worried about him picking up a large end of the African American vote. Especially since when he runs around, the only thing he can yell is blue lives and all lives matter. Yeah, no, it's not going to happen. So, but Hillary, on the other hand, can she be a president for everyone? Yeah, obviously she's going to be more of a president for everyone than Trump will. But she does quite intensely polarize a lot of people in this country still. Neither of them are polling over 50%. Which is a big deal because they talk about not being able to get 270 of the electorate votes. What happens then? It's pretty freaky.
Yeah, I don't want to go down that road because I read an article about somebody trying to explain how Bernie could win.
I saw that too.
And I want to address that. I do because it doesn't sound logical.
Because we're 2 hours in this one.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, we can't spend another half hour on that. But I think that's a good. So Hannah, take a note.
I got it. Someone shared that article with me today.
Yeah, you're right, Jim. I'm motherfucker. Exactly. I've had enough to drink. I stopped caring about the explicit tag. And in all fairness, to everybody listening, I don't want to go out of my way and swear if it offends people. And I know sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. And I do think that Hannah and I could at some point be responsible enough to try and have an intelligent conversation without those type of words. And I'm torn because my personality says otherwise, my alcohol says otherwise, but in reality, I don't want to isolate anybody. And so
justices on the Supreme Court.
Yeah. So anyway, let's talk about that because that was a question that came up. How do you prioritize important characteristics of the Supreme Court justices? And Hillary goes, I'm going to reverse Citizens United. Now, Hillary, you do understand you've been caught supporting that, right? You do get that. And I'm sorry to say that to Hillary supporters. She has supported Citizens United. I'm sorry, she has. Now,
if she's changed and she came over and she agrees with it, repealing it now, and she honestly, genuinely agrees with the slamming that Bernie Sanders put her through when it came to the earlier debates, then great. That's awesome. I would love to have her on our side for this because she, in my eyes, is going to be the next president. And if she supports removing Citizens United, then that's a good thing. Even if I don't agree with everything, it's still a good thing.
And like I said earlier, we could debate for hours on end, right? We could debate and have this discussion about, is it important that she's moved and flip-flopped, right? Is it important if she's two-faced? We can have that conversation. That's a night, but we can have that. Because she talked about people supporting, judges supporting Roe versus Wade, supporting equality in marriage, supporting voting rights, because that's still a problem, and we know that. And it's funny because in Florida, the judge overturned that, and he fixed that. He fixed that specifically, right? He allowed for the fact that we're going to, have an extended. Sorry for the audio issue, but he said that we're going to extend that. We're going to talk about that. We're going to allow these people who went through a hurricane to continue voting, right? And that's important. It's important to acknowledge that our citizens are not all equal, even if we think they are. There is still prejudice and injustice that is plaguing the system.
And hopefully a Supreme Court justice wouldn't be a pawn of that kind of backward let's face it, ancient thinking. I really wanted to hear what Trump had to say about the justice, because he basically said, I want constitutional justices that respect the Constitution, of the Constitution with the Constitution and a gun.
Yeah, and a gun, and a gun. And all he did is talk about, I'm going to uphold the Constitution, and I picked 20 people. Yeah, fuck it, who gives a shit?
Well,
who cares?
I really wish I could have been in that room, and I would have said, you pick 20 people. Name one of them. Because he couldn't. I guarantee you he couldn't. I was listening to people talk about the names that were on there, and people, they went through a list of the people and how good the judges are as far as they were not really, really, really well-known and powerful conservative judges. They were not really the ones that you would expect, the ones that are political, the next ones in line. And they said that this list is obviously something put together by whatever team that he's got. This isn't this crack team of up-and-coming judges that are going to be running the world soon. And so I said, okay, Trump, well, you pick 20. You pick 20 judges, name one. Just name one. I would love to see him stutter and fall on his face.
Yeah. And that's fair, right? That's fair. I mean, I don't know.
He has no idea.
No, he doesn't. So the last part of this discussion, we do want to let everyone go. We don't want to keep everybody all night. So if you do like this and you want to support us on Patreon, there is a possibility Hannah and I could start doing more shows, maybe a little bit shorter. We could do 2 or 3 a week. His wife would approve that if we could supplement a little bit of that income for him while donating to good charitable causes.
We'll just have to get a nice little mixer for me at my place, so we could import and port and 3-port the 4-port.
No Dennis, no Michelle Bachmann Justice. No way. Nope. Dennis, I hope you don't truly support that. Anyway, so the one of the, not the last question, but they started talking about energy policy. And this is a good question, right? This is actually a really good question. What steps will your energy policy take to minimize job loss with oil companies while creating green energy? So Trump thinks that coal is clean energy and that natural gas has got where we are, and that is good. And he says that energy underneath is profitable, and he claims the EPA is too restrictive and it's putting people out of business.
Tell the people in Ohio that are having earthquakes.
Yeah. So you know what, Trump? You're right. It's not putting people out of business. It's putting small businesses out of business.
Yeah, it's not affecting the Koch brothers at all.
Yeah. You're not grasping. The EPA is not too restrictive. The EPA is not putting people out of businesses. Large fucking companies are putting people out of businesses, not the goddamn regulations.
Well, the EPA didn't put BP out of business, and they dumped like 10 billion barrels into the freaking Gulf. Like, we had $100 billion in fines or something, and that got reduced even more, and then reduced even more. The EPA, and when they bill these people, it's like when you bill the biggest banks in the country, it's like, oh, Wells Fargo, you owe $180 million. Really? They sneezed at on a Sunday night. I mean, this type of stuff where they're you guys can pay us a bunch of money. The EPA isn't restricting these big groups. They can make a fine on someone that is basically a small corporation and destroy them or and regulate them into oblivion. But they're not attacking the big guys because the big guys put them in office.
Yeah, and so Hillary's answer is, and I didn't like this answer personally, because at first she goes, well, China's dumping steel into the U.S. and Trump, you're buying it. You're able to circumvent the laws. And that's fair, right?
That was pretty good. That was pretty good with the Chinese steel that he built one of his buildings in.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, Hillary, I agree with you. That's bullshit. That is. But again, you're kind of going down to her or to his level, right? Stop. We don't need to do that. I don't think you need to dump to Trump's level to win, personally. I think if you just propose your ideas, you can win. And if you stick to them, you'll win re-election. It's kind of simple, right?
I just want to see her come out against fracking once. Because she still semi-pseudo supports it.
She does,
She's never completely come out and just said, I hate it. It's terrible and it's bad for everybody.
She thinks it's a bridge to clean energy. That's what she said. She literally said that, Hannah. I mean, like, you're right. And I think the biggest point I took away from this is neither one of them are specifically green candidates in that aspect, right? She accepts global warming. He doesn't give a fuck because it's all about money, you know? And that's the big thing here, right? When we look at what do we want to vote for, right? She's not all specifically just about money. She's somewhat about money. He's 100% for money. He's capitalist in his dealings. Everything he's done fits a capitalistic model. How can we benefit the investors to invest more money to expand my business? That's capitalism on a large scale, right? And the one thing this is what I have to say about this, and this is you could quote me on this, I guess, if you want, right? Capitalism doesn't add jobs if they can do it more lean and more efficient, right? But we can't use the loss of jobs that happens because of all these other things as a reason to claim we are failing in the energy field. You can't do that, Trump. You can't go, yeah, well, look, you're going to kill all these jobs. You're going to kill all these jobs because, you know, we're not going to invest in oil and fracking anymore. There's going to be millions of people or thousands of people out of a job. Yeah, well, Trump. But in business world, if you could figure out how to do this cheaper, you would, and you would cut those damn jobs. I work at a facility that does that. The company I work for took jobs out of Grand Rapids and sent them to Mexico. You know why? Because they could pay them $2.50 an hour versus $22 an hour. Oh, because the insurance up here costs this much and down there it costs nothing because they don't give it to people. They're just slaves down there to the large corporations, and we're buying up all of this stuff. And yes, I'm Apple, right? I'm part of the problem. I won't tell you I'm not. But think about it. Capitalism does not add jobs unless it benefits on a large percentage the stakeholders, the people who control the country. So you're not going to change the energy crisis we're in. You're not going to change the oil industry unless you look at it in a different means, that this does not need to be profitable, that this needs to be a way we can change the world so that we don't all implode and we can't actually go find if there's other damn life on other planets.
Because we're not going to find them because of the Fermi paradox.
Dead, yes. Exactly. Exactly. Good job, Hannah. Way to bring it back around.
Yeah, I was trying the best I could. But, I mean, in the end, this debate ended with a really, really interesting question. And I think Trump had a better answer than Hillary did when it comes to say something nice about your opponent for a change. That was a nice way. I mean, I out loud laughed when I heard that. And I tweeted immediately, say something nice about Donald Trump. Let the stuttering begin, because that would take a while.
Yeah. You're right, Hannah. Okay, you're right. And you want to know something? Trump won that side of it. I'm sorry. His answer.
His was better. It was true and everything.
And the best part about that is when he said it, he did not criticize her once. Welcome, Jeremiah. He didn't criticize her once at the end of it. And she did.
His answer was like 3 words. He was like, that's it, I'm done.
Yes. And so I want to be careful because I don't want to say, hey, she failed, right?
Yeah, no, her answer wasn't garbage, but she used it as a platform as opposed to just trying to be nice for a minute.
Yep, she did. She used that as a jumping off point to end the debate, to promote her agenda. And to criticize him a little bit. Because she did. She says, she did. She couldn't give him a compliment and let it sit. And I'll be honest, it's funny because we haven't seen a lot of pushback. At least I haven't. And maybe, Jeremiah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I have not seen a lot of pushback on her ending statement other than, hey, you used it as... You used it as a jumping off point to promote yourself and do a closing statement.
I think people were so tired at that point, they were just like, oh, I can't wait to her to stop.
Exactly. And, you know, I don't know. For me, Hannah, I don't think that ruined the debate. But I do think that Trump knew exactly what he was doing at the end.
He didn't go for broke like I thought he would. I thought he was going to go to the wall screaming and hollering.
And he didn't. And he left the end of the debate on a high positive note. And he left it by giving his opponent a compliment, which you don't see very often in a debate. And the worst part about that, right, is that I don't like Trump, and I don't want Trump to succeed because I don't want a Trump in an office, right?
But you can't hate him 9,000% of the time.
And so we want to talk about how we can say positive things about the other side. He made a positive comment about Hillary, and he seemed genuine, right? He did. He seemed very genuine in what he was saying. He gets props for that. As racist and sexist as he is, he gets props for at least stopping for a second and saying, hey, you know what? She's a worthy opponent. And I think that speaks volumes to where our country is at. How can we change? Where can we go? Where credit is due. Yes, Jeremiah, exactly. Where credit is due. And in all fairness, Trump should get credit for what he did. Now we just got to figure out where we're going to be, how we're going to be, what we're going to do, where we're going to go from here. And if for me, we've stated where I'm going to go, what I'm going to do. For everybody else, I tell you, make sure you consider all your options, what you're going to do, where you're going to go, who you're going to vote for, but at least go out and vote, because that's the important thing. Make sure you come back next week, because we're going to try another Facebook Live video, another live episode with my co-host, Chris Hanna. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
You've been listening to a presentation of Cellar Door Skeptics. Check us out on Spreaker, cellardoorskeptics.com.